Hello, my name is Udo Kleinitz and welcome to the Asia Voting Dialogue. Certainly a brave new world. The organizers have done a great job in putting this event together, and it's great to see we're just approaching 100 people on the attendee list, so definitely a great turnout. No matter how zoomed out we all are, this is the way and the only way to stay in touch. Plus, it comes with the benefits of no need to travel, no travel expenses. So time-wise, there are some benefits. Of course, there's disadvantages, but let's make the best out of it. I think with the program, you have seen the sequence of presentations that we will have today. We will put them in a second on the screen. But before we begin with our sessions, let me just touch on a few items. Patrick, if you could put the sponsor slide on the screen, please, because I just want to mention the support that we did get from the sponsors. Many thank you for your support. You see them at the bottom right of this slide, our gold sponsors and silver sponsors. And without their support, these events would be impossible. The gold and silver sponsors, as I just said, they are shown on the screen right now. We will also have 2 videos of our gold sponsors shown during the session today. Now, here it gets to technical elements. The quality of your experience will be linked to the quality of the bandwidth. So no matter if you're here as a panelist or if you're as an attendee, it will be best if you're close to a router or if you're connected to a Wi-Fi cable. There's things that we can do our end, but there's things we can definitely not fix from our end. So just to ensure your quality is as best as possible, please make sure that your Wi-Fi is stable and as good as possible. Okay, I would like to actually hand over now quickly to the 2 people I believe are responsible for all this and have made this happen. Initially, YP Lok from the Singapore Boating Industry Association for a few words of welcome. YP, the floor is yours. YP, you're on mute. Good.
Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you, Udo. Hope you can all hear me. And thank you to everyone for attending this first session of the Asia Boating Dialogue 2020. You may know we ran this event alongside the Singapore Yacht Show before, but with COVID-19 and the show postponed, we've reinvented this event as a webinar. Actually, the good that has come out of it is that we are reaching a totally new audience. Not everyone has the time or budget to come to Singapore, but the content is nevertheless valuable to them. We're delighted to be able to bring this content to you to help level up your game. A rising tide floats all boats, as they say. Thanks to our sponsors, we are able to do this at no cost to you all attending today. Our sponsors include gold sponsors, Asian Yachting Academy, Basco Boating, Fontaine Pajot, and silver sponsors, Group Beneteau, Mercury Marine, 115 Marina Club, Simpson Marine, and Volvo Penta. I, of course, have to thank our speakers for their valuable time and effort in putting together the valuable content they are sharing with us. Without exception, they all represent the leadership in the recreational marine sector in their country. So thank you to the presenters. Also, our supporting organizations and partners for helping us promote and leverage this event. Some, along with Singapore Boating Industry Association, are ICOMIA members. And you may know that Lawrence sits on the ICOMIA board. Last but not least, I'd like to thank my partners in crime, Wade in Singapore, Sulin in KL, and Lawrence in Hong Kong. Without their help and cajoling, this event might not have happened. So with that, I'll pass this over to Lawrence for his opening remarks.
Thank you, YP. It's really incredible how the event that you started 5 years ago has blossomed into what it is today. Today we have over 130 attendees, and it's something that is remarkable for the industry. It's great that we're able to share all of our insights with one another and exchange ideas on how we can improve and develop the marine industry around Asia. I'd like to also take the opportunity to thank Udo and Patrick from ICOMIA for helping us organize this Zoom meeting and also moderating the webinar. And as you said, we definitely need to thank Stulin and Wade for helping organize the ABD, the Asia Boating Dialogue, to make it run so smoothly. As HKBIA is an organizer for the event, we are very proud to be part of this remarkable event, to act as a platform for all of us and acting as a catalyst for the industry to further develop. Hopefully, I'll be able to see everyone in person in the very near future when the restrictions are lifted and boat shows and events are open again. So I'd like to pass the floor back to Udo. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much. I have seen one of the attendees has already raised a hand, and the next thing I wanted to touch on was some housekeeping matters before we move to the first presentation. The process for submitting questions and comments. It is interactive. We want you to engage as much as possible. Of course, with about 130 people on this call, it's difficult to handle. But here is my suggestion based on experience with some Zoom calls. You will see a question and answer box at the bottom of your control panel. And we encourage, please feel free to submit questions at any time so we can see them coming through, we can slot them. Attendees can thumb up questions if they like them, which means they will go up the list of questions and be picked, prioritized by the attendees. If you have a specific question aimed at somebody, please make sure you mention that speaker's name so that that person, if possible, is able to answer it during the session. After all, we only have 20 minutes of panel discussion available afterwards. 20 minutes can go by in no time. So it could be a suggestion to address this directly to that person. He or she might be able to answer it, follow up directly, and so on. Yeah. And of course, it can help in sparking a good question and so on. But equally, we have a Q&A function. We have a chat function. I have seen some attendees have already dropped some notes. On the chat, my ability to follow it will be relatively limited because I have to do some talking. We have to do some talking, but we may or may not see them. So question and answer probably will be more seen than the chat function itself. And of course, this is all a function of how many questions we will receive and how much will be unanswered towards the end of the session. So we don't know if we will get flooded. We don't know if we will get nothing. But of course, we will try and answer questions, all questions verbally at the end of the sessions where we have 20 minutes. As said, we will try to answer as many as we can, but we might not be able to answer them all. But your questions will help in moderating the panel discussion for sure. So feel free to submit at any time. I've seen one question has come already through. Naturally, there are two questions which I can just answer right away. One is if the webinar recordings will be available to attendees. Bearing in mind this is a free-to-attend event, it has been made by sponsors, and equally it has been made by some associations where members pay a contribution. We felt it's appropriate to make these recordings available to members of these associations and the sponsors only. The second question which might arise is how can we stay in touch? Can we have a continued chat with the speakers after the session closes? Unfortunately, time constraints will mean we will close when the session ends. But thank you all for your interest in discussion. Please let's engage by following to the speakers. Please submit your questions or comments on the chat. So I believe it's time now to open the floor to the first contribution, to the first two contributions of the day. I will, of course, introduce them individually, but we will hand over now right away to Mr. Ashim Mongia from India to provide us with an update on the Indian market. Thanks, Ashim.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Hello?
We can hear you. Yes, thank you. And we can see your slides as well. So whenever you want to change, just say next slide, please.
Okay. Morning, everyone. Very nice to see everybody, and good afternoon to people from the east side of Asia. Can we go on to the first slide? All right, I'm going to talk to you about India. I've been associated with the Indian market for the last 26 years. I am also currently the president of the Indian Marine Federation, and we have been actively involved with lobbying the government to try and see how we can help popularize yachting and make it grow. Whilst development has been slow on the yachting front, the outlook for India has always been on a swing. The coronavirus has had its impact on India, whilst currently we're going to see a drop in the GDP. The forecast is that we will have a V curve, as you can see from the GDP slide on your left side. We're expecting a V swing, and that is mainly because of two things. The GDP is normally based on a great monsoon. And we've had a good monsoon this year, and with good agricultural produce coming out, the GDP will see a rebound. That is how Indian GDP has mainly been proactive. Also, with the way the demand is and with the increase in population, we are going to overtake China shortly with the population boom. With that comes in the fact that there is a massive increase in the wealth factor, and the UHNI factor is doubling from 2017 to 2022. If you look at all of that put together, the outlook on the Indian market front, whether it is from the GDP point of view or from the aspirational values coming in from the dysphoria of the income that's coming in, whilst COVID may have had a setback, the graph is definitely going to be on the upward swing. Can we go to the next slide, please? India, as everyone knows, has got 7,500 kilometers of coastline, which supports more than 30% of our population. More than 250 million people live on the coastline and or within 50 miles of the coastline. We have a lot of infrastructure which is being developed on the waterfront. We have a rich heritage of history. We have many tourism destinations which are water on the waterfront itself. And the government is taking on a strategy of now developing major ports and port-led prosperity, which is seeing a boom in the traffic that's coming into India on the waterfront. A lot of this has been linked to some of what we have done ourselves, and I will talk about it as we move along, time permitting. On the waterfront side, currently there's only one marina in Cochin, but there is a marina in Goa, a marina in Mumbai, which the tender has come out and is still under negotiation with the government. Port Blair is also out, but not closed yet. Tuticorin is out, but not closed yet. So you will find that in the next couple of years, there is going to be a massive thrust that comes in on the yachting tourism side of point of view. And that is because the government has finally seen the credibility of what tourism can do for the country. Can we go to the next slide, please? A couple of key factors that we've been able to push with in terms of our own working and lobbying with government. We've been able to streamline the processes and get regulations in place where now there is a certain set guideline for yachting per se. And as a result, it has begun to move in the right direction, which was missing from our baseline. That has now allowed people to at least use their yachts more for just not for recreation, but also for the commercial operations and for charter activities. And people are actually using their boats to move around the coastline. And it has opened places like Lakshadweep, which is the islands on the west coast of India, and Andaman and Nicobar on the east coast of India, both of which have led to a fair amount of traffic that's coming into our country and from the yacht tourism point of view. Having seen that come through, the central government has actually put out the development of the marina projects, which is where the Andaman and Nicobar is getting a marina on its own. The Mumbai, which is the financial capital, is getting another marina. And all of these are finally coming together as a central window for clearances. So the clearances are being done from the central government. There is what we call the terms of reference, which have now been written for the marina development. And as a result of which, the entire thrust, whilst it's taken us maybe 20 years to get here, in the last 3 years, everything that we have lobbied with government is now finally coming around. And in the next year and a half, you will see projects actually coming to a final stage of implementation and moving forward. Can we go to the next slide, please? This is the Bombay project I was talking to you about. As you can see, the outline of the project, it is currently a basin that was already, this was something called the Princess and Victoria Dock. This was filled up because they were thinking of making a container terminal here. That has now been shelved and they want to go back to opening this up again. This has been put out to tender. The tender document came out and there have been some queries on that for where they will throw this excavated material. The moment that resolution is found, this project will take off. This is going to be a massive development in the center of the city. And if you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, on the waterfront, which already exists, there is the development over here, which is basically where the RoPax terminal is marked. That is something which has just got operationalized. So this is what is going to finally end up now leading the new development going forward. The domestic cruise terminal is up and running. The RoPax bay is up and running. The event bay is coming up for a tender shortly. The M-Shed, the restaurant and bar areas are opening up, has already been tendered out. The marina has been tendered but not awarded. It is still under negotiation with the government. This will lead to a development of roughly about 200 berth or 300 berth marina, depending on how the design finally comes out and how one decides to utilize the space. But as you can see, there is a fair amount of commercial space. There's a fair amount of place for the development of the waterfront, as well as development of a boatyard along with it. So it will be a mixed use development. And this will come around maybe in the next, I would say, we would see some results on this in about 6 months' time. Can we go to the next slide, please? Some more information. The marina has a built-up area of roughly 5.2 hectares, a total water area of 52,000 square meters. There are walkways. There's a dry stack of 9,800 square meters. A central facility for a yacht club and commercial space of 10,000 square meters. Total area that for development is roughly about 28,000 square meters. And the total development itself is about 80,000 square meters. which as all of you who are in the marina field and in the real estate field would see that there is sufficient land size parcel as well as waterfront development that is actually going to come up in the next 3 to 6 months will be out for grabs. Next slide, please. This will just give you an idea of the population of boats. Unfortunately, because of lack of infrastructure, the number of boats in India has not really changed. We're adding maybe about 5, 7, 10 boats a year that are being imported. The local build market is selling mainly small to medium-sized boats, which are being used by the water sports and the leisure side of the market. We haven't really seen any yachting traffic come in per se, mainly because of two reasons. One is there's a massive tax implication of 63% when you import a boat into India, and lack of infrastructure has not led to any new imports and new boats coming into the country. But the local development from the local builders is pushing local demand, but it's a chicken and egg situation. The moment you have a marina, the boats will come automatically. And with the new policy that is now coming into place post-COVID, I think a lot of it will move towards local construction and home consumption. So there will be a massive thrust that will come through. And the reason I can say this with conviction is that we have done 2 projects for the government today. We took on the development of Mandwa Port, and we started that 5 years ago. We've been able to push that from a footfall of 2,000 people a day to 40,000 people a day. It has shown a direct relation of the charter market has been upped by 30% in the last 3 years, which is a phenomenal growth for any kind of charter activity anywhere in the world. We go to the next slide, please. So, having looked at that development, we invested in the RoPax facility, which has opened in the middle of COVID. We've opened literally 1 month ago, and we're already operating at a reasonable occupancy level, more than what we had expected it to be. All of this is relevant to only one factor, that is India has numbers. You come in with the right kind of profile of the right deliverable in terms of utility and value, and no matter what you do, because of the ever emerging middle class, which has got aspirational values, there will always be a demand for the right infrastructure. So the infrastructure development is going to be a key to moving things in the right direction. And the government, having seen that and having seen the fact that what it can do to tourism factors, has actually now come out with the terms of reference, which I mentioned earlier. And things, all that we've spoken about for the last 15 years is, I would now say in the next 6 months to a year, will see the light of day. So the market is opening up and there is going to be a positive thrust moving forward from here. India has a huge potential for the boating market, and a lot of it has been there, spoken about, but never really been harnessed, mainly because there has been a lack of government policy. That is now getting cleared, and with the new government in place, a lot of things are changing in terms of policy and decision making. And the best thing that will work in our favor, in our opinion, is that we have a great coastline, untapped potential, 8 months of great weather, and our seasons complement the east and the west. So when the Med shuts down, we open up. When the east shuts down, we open up. So it's actually a great blend for us to create a new destination, a new market in the next year and a half, given the way things are progressing, to open up the entire market space. And I'm sure that yachting will come back stronger than ever, only because it is a feel safe and a safe place to go to. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I can have a chat later in the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Ashim. There was indeed one question related to the Andaman Islands. So if you go to Q&A, you will see it and you can follow that directly in your own time. Let's move on to Sri Lanka, which will be presented by Gamini Herat from the BTI Boat Building Technology Institute. Gamini, thank you.
It's good afternoon here, and good afternoon to all of you. And my name is Gamini Herat. I'm representing the Boat Building Technology Improvement Institute in Sri Lanka. And before I go into the real presentation, I just want to say that we are, even though an island has not been a boating nation for some time, due to various difficulties that we had and internal issues. However, the new president elected to the country about just 10 months ago, and also the parliament that was elected 1 month ago, has made a few steps to recognize the boating industry in Sri Lanka. And so we are in continuous dialogue with them to promote the idea of Sri Lanka being a boating nation. So to develop into a boating and yachting country in the Asian region. With this little remark, I would like to go to my presentation. Can I have the first slide, please? Yeah, so Sri Lanka is just below India, only about 29 nautical miles away from Indian coast. And so we have a population of about 20 million, very small compared to India. And our GDP is about 82 billion US dollars. So we had a growth rate of 2.3 last year amidst a lot of difficulties. And we enjoy a per capita income of about 3,800 US dollars, and quite a reasonable unemployment rate and also an inflation rate. Coming to the boating area, I think we have a water area of 980 square meters inland, and also a coastal area of 1,340 kilometers. So we could see that the country, of course, is expecting to have a positive GDP growth in the years to come. And so the growth rate predicted for 2020 is around 1.4% at the moment. Due to Corona, we also had a downfall in some of the activities, particularly the exports from Sri Lanka to other countries, which have been greatly affected by the main markets being affected by Corona, and the trading activities have been ceased for some time. However, now one of the good things in Sri Lanka is that we have been able to control COVID pandemic to a very great extent. And so for the last few months, since May, we have had no patients detected from the society. All the patients right now detected are from the expatriates who are coming, who have been brought to Sri Lanka on their request and been quarantined. So we are to a certain extent in a better position to do our economic activities, day-to-day activities. Can I go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so when it comes to the boating activities and the marinas and harbors in Sri Lanka, we, even though a small country, we have about a few ports, one in Colombo, and there is another port in Galle, in the south of Sri Lanka. Then another port again in south of Sri Lanka, Hambantota, which is a very controversial port. Now it belongs to a Chinese company. Then we have in the eastern coast, we have one small port for fishing, and there is one of the beautiful natural harbors Trincomalee, and then in the north we have another port. So marina development, the government is focusing on a few areas. In Gaul, which is a historically place where the yachts have come and had obtained certain services, is Gaul. So there is a request for proposal out, RFP out for development of Gaul into a recreational boating area. So Sri Lanka Ports Authority has called for this RFP, and it will be available until end of this month for quoting. Then in Colombo, you know that we have a port city, and in the port city there is a marina being developed. And right now, a local company by the name of Sri Lanka has leased out that particular area, and they are now developing that into a kind of a boating or a marina to a certain extent. And by next month, they will open it for boating activities. And the Maravile is also in the west coast, and sorry, is a private company is doing a feasibility to develop a marina in Maravilla, that's in the west coast. Then we have identified a place called Valigama. I think it's popularly known as the Mirissa Harbor, and it's also on the Facebook and in most of the media, social media for the whale watching. And so that particular area, we will have completed the feasibility to have a breakwater and a marina to be developed with a small fishing harbor. And so this is the proposal has gone to the current government budget allocation. So hopefully by next year, we believe that some activity will start in construction. Then in Trincomalee, the natural play harbor, there are some facilities, and at the moment, some of the private sector companies are using it for having charter activities. And during the last few months, there had been some demand from the local community for these cruises, and it's becoming popular. Due to COVID, I think they prefer to have their individual families together in a boat than going into a hotel and spending the time. So Kalpiti is also in the west coast. Is also popular for dolphin activities and various other water sports. There is also an opening for.
Kamini, can I just interrupt? We have 1.5 minutes left for your slides, yeah?
Yep.
Sorry.
So the next slide, please. Yeah, so the boating and business environment, the locations are just given here. And at the moment, there are a little bit of yachting and yacht chartering is taking place in most of these areas that have been, listed in the slide. And you see that we have started recreational boating activities in Sri Lanka, and we hope that with the government interventions and also the investments, this will grow. So can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So opportunities in the recreational boating, as I mentioned, the Colombo Port City is now available for development, even though it is being used by a private company. When it come into the full operation, we will have 100 berths for yachts, as well as few berths for super yachts as well. Then Valigama Bay, which I mentioned, it's going to be developed into a marina with about 80 to 100 berths. And so the present government, boat building and nautical tourism given high priority. And in the investment strategy, I think we believe that few infrastructure development will take place. Already a new ministry has been formed to develop the infrastructure for boating activities in Sri Lanka. So which they will concentrate on recreational boating rather than other activities. So we have made several proposals to this particular ministry, and you see that one of the things that we are advocating is zero custom duty on import of yachts and boats for recreational boating. So this is happening today. I glad to say that today I received the letter from the Minister of Finance saying that they have instructed the customs to have the new duty structure implemented. So that's a good thing.
I mean, we are at the end of our time, unfortunately. Oh,
yes, good. So I'm finishing. Yes. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Yeah, thank you very much, and I'll be open for any questions in time to come.
Thank you so much, Gamini. Questions, as usual, on the Q&A box. We have seen some questions, and my apologies, Gamini. There is no sign I can hold up with this format.
No, it's okay.
I have to interrupt
Thanks.
you. Thank you for delivering. So we will continue now with a video, just introducing our first gold sponsor, which is the ASEAN Yachting Academy. So Patrick, if you could play that video, please. Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you very much, ASEAN Yachting Academy, for your support. We'll continue now with the update on Indonesia that will be delivered by Robin Engel. Robin, thank you so much for joining us. I think you're the westernmost participant at, what is it, 20 minutes to 5 your end. So thank you very much, and the floor is yours. Please don't forget to unmute yourself. You're still on mute. Let's see if we can fix that. That's it.
Thanks very much, Udo. I'm Robin Engel from Jakarta. I'm in Florida, which is my original homeland. I've been in Indonesia for 25 years and totally engrossed in the development of marine tourism in the Republic of Indonesia. After those 25 years, I have a theme that I sort of want to lend to what Indonesia is all about, and that is that Indonesia is the Caribbean of Asia. We have 17,000 islands, and it's a wonderful, probably in my mind, one of the best cruising grounds on earth. Can I have the next slide, please? the government of the Republic of Indonesia is a proactive, democratically elected, wonderful, very, very good government. We're in the second term of the president, and Joko Widodo, and we have seen many changes over his first term. He's now in his second term. First term was pretty much all the dreams and aspirations of those of us involved in the marine industry, whether it's commercial or tourism. Everybody was very pleased to see an important direction given to the government for the development of infrastructure. When you have 17,000 islands, you can imagine everything from shipping to transportation of people between islands becomes important. Those points are foremost in our minds today as we enter the second term of this president, this government, and we are somewhat hindered by the COVID realities, but if you look at everything in a positive perspective, it's actually good. Can I have next slide, please? Our marina infrastructure, considering we're an archipelagic nation, takes 6.5 hours to fly from one side to the other, and that we have zero storm activities it's a very strange situation that we don't have more marinas, but it is a reality. It is a sailing culture, so the potential to staff marine tourism is very good. But pretty much we have in Bali, we have in Batam, we have some in Lombok, we have one out in Papua, and we have a couple in Jakarta, but it's not where it should be. So the opportunities in the area of marine tourism are numerous, but probably one of the more important ones is that of marina development. Over the 2 terms of this administration, we've identified numerous marina locations and have been seeking opportunities to have people fund the development of small marinas, 25, 30 slips in all of the different, many locations on small islands and isolated destinations. As we look at the post-COVID realities, we think that people are going to be looking for these isolated places to small resorts to go to, and as opposed to what we have in the Caribbean or in Bali, people are going to be looking for small special places to visit. Next slide. Our infrastructure plans from our Marine Tourism Organization has been active for quite some time. It's a national organization, Gahawisri. I'm not going to tell you what it stands for. It's nobody would understand, but in fact, it's a national organization, and we basically are a link between the private sector and government. So we go and we sit in on most of the ministerial meetings that have to do with marine tourism, and this gives us an opportunity to propose a variety of interesting opportunities. One of the earlier things was cruise ships. They wanted cruise ships. They've developed some cruise ship ports, but when you see a country it takes 6.5 hours to fly from one side to the other, you find that many of these ports are not capable of dealing with big ships. The Indonesian government, I think 3 years ago, started construction of 60 of the smaller 1,200 gross ton vessels to service the small islands and small communities. It basically comes and carries passengers and cargo. We've looked at this as an opportunity to develop the cruise sector in an expeditionary cruise format. And we've proposed to the government that they modify one of 4 areas in those ships into small cabins so we can carry 25 or 30 tourists And we think that we don't even need to alter the itineraries of these ships because they are there to help the people of the small islands. And they stay for 5 or 6 hours in each port and then move to the next. That to us was an interesting product. All of infrastructure in boats, in our minds, has to do with products. So if we look at sport fishing boats, or we look at dive boats or water ski boats, these are all infrastructure generating business opportunities for tourists to enjoy the water. In order to, I know that I've seen several organizations that have several destinations that have expressed interest in increasing their infrastructure by locally manufactured boats. I'm here in Florida to do the final parts of exporting boats from the Florida southeastern part of the United States, exporting pre-owned boats to destinations. This has a huge opportunity to fill the void of good boats. As I said, sport fishing, water ski boats, many, many potentials. And we plan to do that by shipping deck-mounted 45, 50 boats per run. And we figure over a period of 2 or 3 years that we'll be able to fill a growing void of inexpensive assets for infrastructure and boats in Asia. Next slide. COVID, fortunately, all of us had experienced positive growth. Boats come, boats stay, boats visit, and I'm talking about sailors. Super yachts were there, and those are positive in some senses, in other senses not so positive. But the fact of the matter is that I think in the last 5 years we have without question seen an interest and a growing interest of yachting in Asia. This COVID matter has stopped that, has confused that to a great extent. There's many countries, you can see them in the internet asking questions, how can I get out of here? How can I go there? This is something that really should be sorted out and addressed as soon as possible. But the fact of the matter is that most of the borders, in the case of Indonesia, for example, are closed until the first quarter of 2021. But what Indonesia has done is to take this as an opportunity to introduce its domestic market, which, like India, for example, is a large population, and to introduce them to destinations within the country that need development. And we're hoping that this can be the type of stimulus program that the Indonesian people can become involved in and hopefully invest in some of these very small, unknown destinations, again, post COVID, that the tourists are going to be interested in. And with the infrastructure that we have proposed, that the developments in those areas can become reality, and the end result of that is growth in marine tourism opportunities. So to keep everything short, those are the points that we missed to make. And my last slide, please. When I went through this SWOT analysis, I see some real strong strengths. I see some weaknesses. I can tell you that, that Indonesia is not as corrupt as it used to be, without question. And in fact, I don't know that in many cases the word corrupt was appropriate, but it is bureaucratic. And so the bureaucracies in the country are probably its biggest hindrance, but the opportunities are not complicated. There are numerous marina development opportunities, boat investment opportunities. We've worked to reduce our present 75% import duty down to 15%. And we're awaiting a presidential instruction to allow that particular point to play out. And we're hoping that over this COVID period, when the local Indonesian is out looking at itself in the smaller places, that those opportunities, the reduction of the import duty on foreign manufactured boats will be able to stimulate that market. And then the threats, yeah, you know, if you don't make it happen, marinas are going to be hard to justify, but I think everybody has already admitted that those things are there, and they will come to reality. Indonesians are tolerant, and they are creative, small business people. And I think that the potential for Indonesia to become the Caribbean of Asia is a great one. And so next slide. Thanks very much for the invite, Udo and YP. The opportunity is very much appreciated, and thank you very much.
Robin, thank you very much. I think that was very great, insightful. There were actually some questions in the Q&A, so once you caught your breath again, please answer these questions as well. We're going to move on to the next contribution, which is on Singapore, and that's going to be presented by Darren O for SBIA. Darren.
Thank you. Thank you, Udo. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Darren O. I'm from 115 Marina, and we have been a big supporter for the Singapore Boating Industry Association. So let me share a bit more about what Singapore Boating Industry Association have supported the marina environment and also the recreation boating in Singapore. All right, moving on to the next slide. Let me give you a bit of the economic background of Singapore. In terms of GDP, we have achieved like 507 million in Singapore dollars. That would give us about 372 million in terms of US dollars. And that has been the growth of the last 30 years of economic growth. And that put us on the world map among the top 5 countries in the world in terms of GDP per capita. All right, so the GDP per capita is about 88,991. Again, has been an increase. I've taken a look at the 2020 figures. It looks like we are on track to achieving these figures that we have achieved in 2019, even though of the pandemic. But the good months and the good work and the foundation of Singapore has been able to bring the economic stability to the country. Okay, international visitors are the highest point of 19.1 million visitors, which brings in more life to the yachting and marine industry of Singapore beyond the domestic sector. So in terms of the demography and geography, I think you will understand that Singapore has a population of 5.7 million with 4 million Singapore citizens and permanent residents, but with a very small land area of only 715 square kilometers. That gives us a population density of 7,866 per square kilometer. So in other words, we in the marine industry always look at how we can work with the other mariners in other countries to introduce reciprocal arrangement so that our members, our boaters, the whole boating community get a chance to visit other mariners that we recommend and can provide a similar kind of standard and service over there. On this, I mean, we have been working very actively for beyond Singapore itself in terms of bringing our boaters out of Singapore. Okay, but within Singapore, I will share with you more about our charting grounds later on. Okay, moving on. Main regulatory environment. Of course, Singapore Maritime Port Authority has been our main government body that we, Singapore Boating Industry Association, has been working very closely with in terms of promoting and nurturing this maritime industry. So in terms of like licensing, a powered pleasure craft driving license, we have the basic and advanced on this. So the basic driving license will be looking at boats 24 meters and below, while for the 24 meters and above, that will require the advanced PPCDL licensing. Okay. In terms of the boating license, if you're just using the boat for your own pleasure, that is a Z license. And if you want to charter your boats, you will have to go into a SZH licensing, and that's what the governing body MPA said. So, and MPA is also doing their fair part in also nurturing the next generation in terms of providing school curriculum activities of sailing, kayaking, getting people to be comfortable with water. Especially we have a whole year round of a sailing season, very good water and weather for us to really experience the water. So we are hoping that more and more people will go on board onto the water through MPA's involvement in helping the students to get close to the water. Next, CIQP. CIQP used to be one of the weaknesses that I was shared for Singapore, in the sense that we only have it in the Sisters Island, and it was a CIQP facility for both commercial boats as well as for yachts, which is not so pleasant in the way. So in 2019, June, 115 Marina, Sentosa Cove was the first to start the CIQ facility, and this is closely followed by Raffles Marina, two marina that provide this CIQ facility for our yachting community. And that really helps to shorten the process and a more conducive environment for them to wait for their CIQ processes to take place within the grounds of the marina, very steady water, before they go out to Malaysia, Indonesia, or other parts of the world. Okay, taxes-wise, 7% GST is all you have to pay for to import a pleasure craft. And if you are consuming goods and services that is not in Singapore, you don't have to pay GST. So we have a very conducive, friendly tax environment. Next. These are the 7 marinas that we have in Singapore. Pretty much steady supply of berthing as well as boats that has been registered in Singapore over the past few years. Some of these marinas like 115 Marina, Raffles Marina, and Republic of Singapore Yacht Club, we also have hotel facilities. Mainly we use these marinas as more than just a parking for yachts, but it's also a space for members of these clubs to really mingle together and interact and also enjoy the space that's provided by clubs. And that's why they have, these 3 marinas have more facilities than the other marinas. Okay, moving on. Right, so I'll talk a bit more about charters. Yeah, I've shared a bit about Singapore waters being a bit small, but it's very good for day charters out to the Southern Islands, where 115 Marina and Keppel Marina has a good location to provide a lot of charters for these 2 places. The other marinas, of course, they're all within a short distance drive to explore the islands as well. Right, so a normal day charter will bring you to like Lazarus Islands, where you can enjoy the water and the pristine beach, and to visit some of the local sites when you're on the island. These are the places that normally Singaporeans and tourists would not have visited unless you go onto a charter boat to really explore these sites. And I will share with you more about this COVID situation during this COVID period. How is our charters doing in the next slide? And beyond these islands, there are also longer route. That, for example, Pulau Semakau is the only offshore landfill island in Singapore. There's a very interesting site because where do the rubbish go to in a small island like Singapore? It's precisely going to an island that's offshore, and the boats can take you there to take a look. Further away, of course, we need to rely a lot on Indonesia and Malaysia as the other destinations for our boaters to go to. And this is actually very active in Singapore until, of course, when the COVID strike, the borders get brought, the boats unfortunately have to be in Singapore for this period. All right, moving on. Okay, so I'll share with you a bit more about what happened during COVID. So in April 7 to 18 June, basically that is our, we experienced the biggest impact of circuit breaker. We call it phase 1. And there was really no charter activities at all. But from 19 June onwards, we started to practice social distancing, not just in restaurants and other public spaces, but also on boats, charters with 5%. That excludes captain and crew. So it is actually a very small number of people that can be put on board. However, point number 4, from 13 August onward, the Maritime Port Authority allow any boats that want to ride in to increase the capacity limit. So there are some boats that are operating from, instead of 5, they operate at 10, 15, 35, depends on the size of the boat. So long as you can you can explain why you're able to practice social distancing and you have the space on board of the boats to do so, and you're allowed to do so for a 6-month conditional approval. This period, the boats are aggressive. The charter boats have come down in terms of prices between 10 to 50%. That is to encourage more people to go on board the boat, but also if you have only 5% going on board of the boat, it can be considered quite expensive on a per pax basis. I'll share a bit more about our charter operations under 115 luxury yachting and 115 life. Over the last 2 months, we've been experiencing more than 20% increase in terms of number of charters this period compared to last year, the same period. So in other words, there are really many Singaporeans that really go out on the boats, even though there's such a limitation in terms of capacity. Staycation, hotel staycation is another thing that we saw, a very good take up by Singaporeans to these hotels. All right, next. Okay, that comes to my last slide, which I share a bit more about what we see in Singapore under a SWOT analysis. Very safe harbor and marina is our main strength, has been there for years. What we see in our marina is that we have also been organizing annual international boat show and other events, such as SB20, a sailing event. And in fact, last year we have also organized the Super League, is a triathlon. So imagine a marina environment, but actually a triathlon is actually very suitable. You have the water basin for the athletes to actually swim, and surrounding the boardwalk, you can have them cycle, you can have them run around the marina. So you are actually, it's actually very wonderful to really be able to organize such events at the marina, to really bring out the profile and the prestige and the lifestyle surrounding the marina, the F&B over there, the high-end residents that stays around the marina. Right, so that's our experience with marinas in Singapore, being able to organize these events. Right, it attracts a lot of, Singapore itself attracts a lot of corporates, MNCs, and ultra high net worth individuals over the years with our high GDP per capita that you can see. So that continue to offer the kind of demand for boat ownership, charter of boats, boat co-sharing, and birding at marinas, as well as going overseas with these boats to the region. Very good weather, negligible taxes that I mentioned before. Yep, steady demand for yacht ownership and charters. Charters, especially these days, we see a lot of corporates, a lot of individuals, parties that's being held on board of boats. People are looking at new ways of celebrating their events that's on the yachts rather than at hotel ballrooms and so on and so forth. Right, and of course, the Singapore boat industry that is very active in lobbying the government. Okay, moving on to the weakness. A bit restricted cruising ground because we have lesser water and islands around us. There's a lot of commercial boats that's going around at the port as well, sharing the same water channel. We have heard about the governments trying to move some of these port activities to the west of Singapore, and that will help to relieve some of this space and sea channel. And hopefully with that, it opens up other spaces for new marina development, which we currently see is reaching quite a bit of capacity in terms of boats coming to Singapore and boats that's owned in Singapore. Low government priority as regards boating and yachting. Yes, I mean, this is traditionally an issue, but I think in recent years, there have been more communication with the government authorities, and they're putting more emphasis on boating tourism, as well as making it more conducive for boats to operate and marina to operate here. ICQ requirements used to be a weakness, I mentioned, but these days, because of Raffles Marina and 115 Marina offering ICQ facilities on sites of the marina itself, it has kind of been able to relieve some of these inconveniences of going to sister island, or the island that's in the south, to actually do some of these ICQ facilities. Boating still considered a very luxury lifestyle, high entry cost for people to own boats. Something we hope to see more changes with more people going on the charter of boats, going on co-sharing of boats. We would like to see more people being able to experience this lifestyle. Opportunity-wise, I think like my other speakers will be mentioning that Malaysia, Indonesia, a lot of these boating grounds are opened up. We have been involved in some of these consultancy marina projects over there, and asked to invest or manage some of these marinas over there, so we could see how active it is in Indonesia, Malaysia, and more in from other speakers that we're hearing from today and next week. A lot of these policies are getting more and more favorable for boating industry, and we are excited because we really love to have our boats going to more places beyond Singapore. Yeah, all in all, I think talking to people in the Caribbean, in the Mediterranean, we see that Asia is coming up very strongly as a new cruising ground. And this is an opportunity that we hope that all of us can really tap on and exploit this opportunity. Lastly, about a threat, I think in a way, yes, lesser mariners reaching full capacity in Singapore, but we also see some Singapore boats going to Nong Sas in Batam, going to Malaysia, Puteri Harbour, that we also have been operating a marina. There'll be more mariners coming up in future that the Singapore boats can also go in. Yeah, I think that will end my presentation for Singapore.
Thank you so much, Darren, for your time putting this together and to your contribution today. We will move on next to Malaysia, which will be delivered by William Kwa for AMIM. Thank you, William.
Thank you, Udo. Very good evening, everyone. I'm William. I'm standing in for Mr. Oh Kian Shen, who sends his apologies that he cannot be with all of you here doing the presentation this evening. We are representing the Association of Marine Industry Malaysia, who had in recent years, with the help of Mr. Oh Kian Shen, has taken a interest in the yachting industry in Malaysia. Next slide, please. So we'd like to talk about Malaysia yachting industry. Actually, we need to do some re-strategizing because it is now we can see that it's lagging behind our neighboring countries such as Indonesia, Singapore, and also Thailand. So AMIM, which is the Association of Marine Industry Malaysia, is taking the lead to face these challenges, to work with the government and private sector to grow the yachting industry under the subcommittee of yachting industry section, which is headed by Mr. Oh himself. So AMIM have actually outlined 5 strategies of growth for the yachting industry, which I will later further share with all of you. So let's go on to the next slide. Let's talk a bit about COVID-19 and how it has actually impacted Malaysia as a whole. As some of you know, Malaysia has been a country which is open to a lot of economies in the world, with a trade to GDP ratio averaging over 130% since 2010. But since recent years, there's a massive reduction of 17.1% in the gross domestic product contraction especially in the second quarter of 2020, which we have seen Malaysia being the worst performing economy in Asia so far. So business across multiple sectors come to a standstill because of this, delivering a significant blow to our economy. However, we are thankful that technology has emerged as a very powerful lifeline, which has proved to be invaluable to users. So that's why we can see seminars like this going on. We would be able to show people boats using the online facilities that we have for people which are overseas, which cannot travel at the moment. So this actually keep businesses running as well within our homes. And so now we have Malaysia has come to a state where we are in the recovery movement control order, where we are allowed to do a bit more activities. And we see actually a new wave of yacht buying, of people actually coming up in interest in actually into boating, maybe because they are restricted from traveling out of the country. So they have actually gone into looking for boats. And then we can actually obviously see also from the previous presenters that actually chartering has actually taken a leap in the business as well, and has emerged after this restriction movement order in the country. Next. So therefore, just now I was just talking to you about the 5 strategies of growth that the association was going to look, or is looking into, with this 5 strategies. We hope that we will be able to also help the industry, or the yachting industry, to actually emerge into a better player in our region as well. Next. So I'll just show you on the peninsula of Malaysia. If you see those in a red star, is the shipyards which are available across the peninsula of Malaysia. We can see that there are quite a number of shipyards around, but we can see that most of these shipyards actually emerge from a commercial shipyard, or those who are also catering to the fishing market. We are also trying to get all the shipyards to be familiar with the yachts as well, which are the white boats. And it is not that simple, because in commercial, they don't really practice being a bit more fine with things. Yeah, so that is a challenge that we also find in the shipyards along the country as well. And also on the blue marks will be the marinas that are available. And we can see that there's a lacking in the east coast of Malaysia. And we are very thankful to the former Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tun Dr. Mahathir, who actually tried to boost the yachting industry by actually putting quite a amount of money into building up marinas in the country. So that is also one of the reasons why we can see that there are quite a number of marinas in the country. However, we can say that some of the marinas are lacking in their facilities. They are lacking in their ability even to cater to bigger yachts. So that will be something that I'll be able to also share with all of you all after this as well. Next. So I'm sorry about this being a bit small, but we'd just like to go into the SWOT analysis of the Malaysian yachting market. So I think the few strengths that we can also talk about is that in Malaysia, we have a very diversified group of people. We have Malays, Indians, Chinese, and we speak actually a multilingual languages. And in that, we are able to cater to the yachting market as well, and to encourage more yachting tourism, because when they come here, they will be able to feel more comfortable. They will not have the language barrier as well. High-profile yachting regattas. We have been having a lot of regattas going through the country. Some of them from Indonesia, coming up from Australia actually, coming up to Indonesia, to Malaysia, up to Phuket as well. And vibrant youth sailing club culture that is happening across the country. Many fine anchorages along beautiful coastlines and islands. And we can see that actually cruising yachts staying longer than 2 years in Malaysia. The weaknesses that we see over in Malaysia is that we actually have limited marinas, even though I've shared in the previous slide that you can see that there are quite a number of marinas across the country, but still there are limited marinas catering to actually the yachts which are passing by, and also the local yachts as well as the shipyard facilities for larger super yachts and charter fleet. These are also something which are lacking, and is something that we are trying to look into as an association. Little skill development to support the yachting industry. They are lacking in actually focusing on this industry because of it being has seen as being a very small industry in Malaysia. The CIQP regulations are confusing and not consistent. Sometimes you can go to a place like in Langkawi and you can have a different set of rules when you go over to maybe the East Coast, or you go over to Sabah as well. Demand of berthing exceeding supply. We can see that we actually have a lot of demand. Like a small place like where I am now in Penang, we have a small little marina called a Straits Times Marina, and it's only 40 berths. And the marina manager is always telling us that I'm always full. I'm never empty. No banks will be another weakness. Will be no banks are providing any mortgage facilities for yacht purchases. Lack of structures, processes, and storage for repossessions of yachts. So that is something that's lacking in the country as well. Opportunities that are available in Malaysia. Capability and skills in yacht repair are provided by military ship repairers at the moment. So we see that there is, because that they are already in the ship repair and building business, there is something which we are able to fine tune so that we can also cater to the yachting repair market as well. To develop a forward plan for yachting infrastructure and facilities, we are also working on the incentives for shipyards to repair yachts, and master plan for marinas and shipyards. So we are intending that we will be able to have the opportunity of having more marinas and shipyard across the country. Program to transfer shipyard skills from commercial military to yachts, as what I've mentioned just now, and to promote Malaysia as a safe yachting destination, and also to introduce AIS, automatic identification system, and a new technology for tracking and monitoring yachts, because over now in Malaysia, we are pretty free, not like our neighboring countries like Singapore and Thailand, that this has been made compulsory. It is yet something which we are hoping that it will be made compulsory so that it's easier for tracking to be done. There's an increase in local yacht ownership, and also there's and with this increase in the yacht ownership, so we can also see that that will be an increase in the employment opportunities and also a career path in the yachting industry. And actually to develop a marine academy. I'm happy to see one of our sponsors down in Singapore, which is actually doing a marine academy. And when we do hope that in Malaysia, we are able to start a marine academy for yachting. We have marine academies for the commercial, but not so much for the yachting side. Threats, neighboring countries such as Thailand and Indonesia, they are overtaking Malaysia in terms of the procedures, in terms of the repair facilities, and we see that and we acknowledge that. Lack of financing and insurance models, requirement of pleasure boats to check in and out at every port, even though it's in Malaysia itself, we see that there is boaters are actually complaining that it is an issue for them because when they want to go from, for example, from Port Dickson up to Lumut in Pangkor, they need to check in and out, so that is a problem. So we see that in Thailand and Indonesia and nearby, the CIQP is actually quite easy for them, and it's attracting yachts to their countries very much. Next, please. So I'll just go into the various...
William, I think we're reaching the end of our time.
Okay.
So just wrap it up.
Sure. All right. So as I've mentioned about the 5 strategies that we are looking into, we would like to develop the local market to attract more foreign yachts into Malaysia. Secondly, we'll talk about the infrastructures like the marinas and the shipyards. There's actually a need for it to grow even more. Regulations and SOPs and the CIQPs that I've spoken about, that needs to be in alignment so that everyone will actually be easy when they access into Malaysia. The last slide, please. And lastly, we'd like to talk about awareness in educating and skill development so that people will be more aware of the yachting industry and how they can also support and also be part of it. And last but not least, we talk about financial structures and insurances that the banks will be able to also help the industry to grow in giving finances. Right. So thank you very much. That is the sharing from Malaysia. Thanks, Udo.
Thank you, William. Let me just go into detail in one question. It's great that questions are submitted. Please, if all the panelists can have a look at them, if they're addressed to them, please answer them. One question is if we can collate the responses. Yes, we will try to see what we can do, but at the moment, as I said at the beginning, it might not be possible to answer them all. We will follow up with the presenters and see if there is something that can be made available as part of the packages, but as I indicated, distribution may be limited. So with the last block of 3 presentations, it's now time to offer the floor to our second gold sponsor, which is Basco Boating, and we'll show again a video. Thank you for playing, Patrick.
Hi there, and welcome to the Asia Boating Dialogue and to Basco Boating. My name is Dione Schick, and I'm the co-founder of Basco, along with my husband, William Schick. So who is BASCO? BASCO is a global community for the leisure boating industry where buyers and sellers, owners, dealers and service providers congregate to connect, advise and trade with one another. First-time boat buyers often need guidance to avoid confusion and bad experiences in their boat purchase. BASCO ensures that trust is built in the community by showing first-time boat buyers through their purchase journey, from learning the ropes to finally sealing the perfect deal. There's three main arms of BASCO. There's connect, advise and trade. So the first one, connect. Social events for the community to get together and for them to invite their friends, expanding the boating community and improving word of mouth marketing. Examples are the boating community networking night, the boat boss parties and appreciation nights for the industry. Advise is point 2. The free Boat Buyer Expo provides more than 30 free education-focused advice and training sessions, coaching programs, masterclasses, membership to the Boat Buyers Academy and consulting services. We also invite industry practitioners to participate in speaking sessions at the Boat Buyer Expo. The third segment is trade, the Asia Online Boat Show. Sellers list their boats for sale in both the classifieds and as entries in the online boat show. Buyers find suitable boats to bid on, to offer on and to purchase. The technical services marketplace, where boat service providers and owners can connect to trade. And we help small and medium boat industry businesses with digital transformation and to get online. Why work with BASCO? We're on a mission to provide trusted advice that takes risk and uncertainty out of boat ownership. We're the 2020 winners of the Singapore Maritime Consultancy Firm of the Year Prestige Award, and we've got a community of more than 50,000 people. We're industry veterans. We've been around for more than 35 years in the boating industry in Asia and also in New Zealand. Together we can connect, advise and trade to expand boating to many more people in Asia and shape the industry with this digital transformation. We can help more first-time boaters make that leap to the boating lifestyle. So if you're a supplier that wants more business, if you're a boat guru that wants to expand the industry, together we can do both. Contact us to discuss how this digital transformation can improve your business and connect with us. Find us at www.basco.asia. Thank you so much and I hope you have a great event. Bye for now.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, BASCO Boating. We'll continue now with the presentation for Thailand, and in charge for that is Peter Jacobs from the TYBIA. Peter, you're still on mute, but the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Peter Jacobs. I'm a CE inspector for the International Marine Certification Institute. So I assist boat builder in acquiring CE certification for the export of their boats. I'm also a member of TIBA, the TYBA, which is on its turn a member since a few months from ICOMIA. We are a non-profit marine leisure industry association, and we are run completely on volunteer basis. And we serve yachting-related companies throughout Thailand. The primary objective of TIBA is to provide a medium through which all yachting-related businesses in Thailand can address their concern with the relevant authorities, so we can lobby for them. We have at present 43 members, and we are working amongst others on data collection, which is a quite difficult task that we've started recently. We worked on the super yacht charter license. We organized the Thai Charter Week last year, which unfortunately was cancelled this year. We unsuccessfully attempted to introduce voluntary ISO 2410 certificate for charter boat companies. We work on bareboat sailing yacht registration, and we cooperate with the Thai safety and health authorities to fight COVID issues. So quite a big amount of task for a association of volunteers, but we're doing it with pride and love. Next slide. The beautiful country of Thailand, placed in Southeast Asia, has a land area of 530,000 kilometers, quite a big coastline of 3,200 kilometers, and 1,430 marvelous islands to sail around. Not unimportant, the happiness factor is at 52 now out of 155. It's to be noted that it was 36 in 2013, so it's not really going the good way. We have only 3,500 COVID cases at present and only 59 dead. However, that comes at a high cost of the economy. Thailand has been very much closed. We plan to kind of reopen the border on the 1st of October, but under extremely strict conditions, mandatory quarantine and accepted hotels and more conditions. So it's not going to be the comeback of the tourism yet. Just going to help a few cases that are, for example, with family or so in Thailand. The foreign tourism income was lowered from 60 billion US dollar last year to $10 billion. Well, we hope $10 billion this year. So it's quite catastrophic in terms of tourism. It's of course for everywhere the same, but as you know, Thailand has a high income from tourism, so it's quite important for Thailand. Next slide, please. So in terms of regulations, the yachting law are governed by the Thai Vessel Act number 6. That is an act from 1938, and it was last amended 13 years ago in 1997, so 23 years. Motor yachts of 10 gross tonnage and upwards, and sailing yachts of 20 gross tonnage all fall under Thailand vessel legislation and have to be in compliance with the rules and regulations here. The bareboats, unfortunately, chartering a bareboat requires a skipper and an engineer. Lately, the Marine Department in Phuket, also thanks to the cooperation with TIBA, accepted to have sailing bareboats without skipper and engineers. Fortunately, it has not been applied everywhere, so we still see authorities requiring that. This, of course, slowing down the whole bareboat industry. Then a few years ago, we came up with the super yacht license that is above 30 meters, not 24, but 30 here. It's for less than 12 passengers. However, when the boat is used commercially for charters, there is still an import duty that is requested, that can be returned when leaving, but of course it's not an ideal situation. So we're still working on trying to have uniformity of the requirements. I think that's something we need to work all together in Asia so that we form a kind of corridor from the Red Sea to Australia, all the way in between. We need to work together so that it makes it a lot easier in terms of regulations and uniformity of it in the different countries in Southeast Asia and East Asia. Next slide, please. The yacht ownership here is restricted to Thai individuals and corporations. If the vessel is used for commercial purposes, then a Thai vessel company needs to have at least 70% of the Thai shareholders and at least 50% of Thai directors. So you cannot just start a charter company here if you don't have 70% Thai shareholders. The good news is there's no import duty, and the VAT is only 7%. And to drive a boat here, you must have an helmsman license that's issued by the Marine Office. To be issued a license, you must pass a written test of 40 questions and pass an oral exam of 5 questions to prove that you understand both operating regulation in Thailand. I'm not sure if there is any, but yes, it's still a test to be done. Next slide, please. Now, as I mentioned before, we are working on trying to get proper data collection. It's not easy. Not all the companies want to share their data, and also there's a lot of companies who are working more in the informal sector. For example, you see here that there's 25% of boat builders. Yes, that is a high number. However, those are really including very informal boat builders of wooden long-tail boat building, plywood, speedboats, and so on that you see alongside the road. They're not really the commercial boat building entities that one might expect working under international standards. Then the maintenance of supplies, of course, is quite big because we have a quite a high number of marinas with all the facilities on it and all the maintenance companies around it. And then the charters represent 10% of the industry, which is quite a big slice. Of course, now those people and everybody, of course, is extremely struggling under the COVID without new tourism. So we have to rely entirely on local businesses, being people from Bangkok flying down to do a charter. And that is something quite new for them. I don't think we have emphasized enough the local tourism previously. And that's probably something that's going to come out of this COVID crisis. Next slide. So we've got some very good infrastructure. I think that's a very good thing here. I'll divide it, for example, in the North Gulf of Thailand, where we have the biggest marina in Thailand being Ocean Marina Yacht Club in Pattaya with 380 berths. We have in the west Race Marine in Hua Hin, a little bit up the river with 120 berths. And then we have a very small but very lovely little Koh Chang Marina. If you ever have an opportunity, it's a nice trip from Pattaya to Koh Chang. Next slide, please. Yeah. Then the Phang Nga Bay and the Andaman Sea is, of course, way more popular for boating. And there we have the remaining marinas being in the north of Phuket, number 2 there, Yacht Haven Marina with 320 berths. And I believe they are expanding with about 50 berths or so, quite big berths. It's also the only place where you can have the super yachts here in the south. Then you have Aupo Grand Marina Phuket with 300 berths. In the east, in Krabi, you have Port Takola Krabi with 280 berths, and that is going to expand again with all modern facilities there. Back to Phuket, Boat Lagoon Phuket with 180, and Royal Phuket, which is just next to it with 100 berths. And we have Boat Lagoon Krabi with 80 and Krabi River Marina for 40. So that gives a total of 1,814 berths. All of these marinas have the necessary repair facilities, shop, restaurants, are very well equipped. And there is at the moment quite a number of marinas development wanting to open. In Phuket, there are quite a few, in Koh Samui and Chumphon. Unfortunately, the EIA, the environmental impact assessment, is pretty archaic, old-fashioned, and not really applicable to marinas. So it's extremely difficult to have new marinas, although there is really a demand and we need new birds. Then finally, the challenges. Next slide, please. As I said, there are very high requirements on bareboat usage at the moment, being the skipper and engineer on board, which is not ideal if you want to rent a little boat and you have all your qualifications and you need to have a skipper and engineer on board with Thai qualification, not any AYA or any international qualification. So that takes away a bit of the privacy. As I said, now it's been solved around Phuket for the sailing bareboat. The boat building regulation, well, that's the opposite. There hardly are any boat building regulation, and they're certainly not in line with international standards. Although the Thai Industrial Standard Institute is a member of PC 188 small craft ISO standards, it's not applied in the country. As a result, we have a high number of accidents. We have all these boats that are built locally that cannot be exported, substandard. It's very unfortunate. The import duty requirement by custom on superyacht and commercial use, as previously mentioned, there's not many superyachts that are willing to put down a deposit on the value of the yacht. They want rather to have on the value of the charter, but not the yacht. There is often a bad public image due to unregulated boat building practice, resulting in various accidents, and also the transport of passengers at high speed, often combined with drunk and alcohol intake by the crew. We have regular high-speed accidents that's resulting in dead tourists. That is not good for the industry. We had a very big accident last year, you might remember, with the Phoenix. Resulting of the Phoenix, the number of Chinese tourists dropped dramatically. And I'm not only talking about chartering, I mean just the entire tourism industry is suffering every time we have this kind of accidents.
Peter, we're a bit over time.
Yep. And then finally, as I mentioned before, the EIA is in need of revision, and as everybody, the COVID crisis. That's it for Thailand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Peter. And we'll just move on straight to the piece on the Philippines delivered by Rafael or Apa Onpin.
Good afternoon, everybody. May I have the next slide, please? There's very little activity right now due to quarantine. We had a lockdown, actually the world's longest lockdown of 77 days from March to about May. And after this lockdown, some local dive boats have resumed. We actually have had in the past a very vibrant dive boat industry. And, you know, it was a big contributor to our tourist revenue. But now public transport has shut down. So a lot of the tourist boats are doing private transport, which means, you know, contractual, come and pick me up here and bring me here. Other than that, there's very little activity. Some local governments are still not allowing operations in major destinations. Coron, Busuanga, El Nido, and Subic, which are mentioned here, are all major boating destinations for the Philippines. Coron, Busuanga, and El Nido are in Palawan, a beautiful place. Subic is on Luzon. But the local governments there are basically saying, no, all boats stay in the harbor, nobody gets on, no operations. Manila is allowing boat use sort of a loophole. They allowed outdoor sports. And so we're sailing in Manila, actually. But all commercial activity is underground and in violation of quarantine. May I have the next slide, please? So Manila opened in May, closed in July, opened in August. I'm just gonna breeze through this because, you know, there's a pattern. Basically, since May, most people opened, some have closed again, blah, blah, but it varies because the central government is very, very vague about what's allowed and what's not. So it leaves it to local governments to decide. And most of them have taken the path of least resistance, which is just to close everybody. But, well, that's our government. Next slide, please. So there are about 15 registered active commercial boat builders, and I've listed them here for anybody who wants to know who they are. It's mostly speedboats and rigid hull inflatable boats, a few multi-hulls, all fiberglass. It's about 100 units sold in 2019. Next slide, please. The primary market is upper middle class to wealthy private owners. The secondary market is resorts, property developers, and other industries. I mean, they buy this new, it's just that it's a slightly smaller market than the private owners. I talked to a bunch of these manufacturers and they're still selling boats. I don't know. The people, the minute the lockdown ended, they sold a number of boats. None of them reported lower sales. Some reported higher sales year to date. So the forecast is flat to slight growth. Next slide, please. So there are about 6 major yacht dealers here. Apart from the Hobie dealer, who are a big player, most are importing large boats over 50 feet, but usually less than 90 feet. And I'll explain why. Because yachts over 90 feet usually sail in on their own bottoms, and they're not formally imported. So the transaction takes place usually abroad. And if they're new, they're bought from the manufacturer directly. So maybe there's, it really varies a lot. Some years we get 5 units coming in, some years we get 15, but the maximum number ever has been 15. Our number 1 yacht dealer by far is Europa, which is the exclusive distributor for Lagoon and Azimuth, and has maybe 50 or 60% of the market in most years. So I'm being told that sales are still very active. People are in negotiation, and the year could end with some growth. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. That's not the next slide. Sorry.
Done. Yeah, just 1 second. Bear with us, please. Let me just see. Yes, yacht dealers is the last slide that we have. Let me just see if there is something in the PDF different. Or Abba, just feel free to continue as you had it planned.
Well, it's difficult for me to continue without seeing the presentation.
That's correct. I'm just going to check the PDF.
I could share my screen and do it that way.
Yeah, we can do that. That's the last we have. Let us just. Yeah, okay. So you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. Sorry, I need to, how the hell do I do this? It's, desktop 1, I guess. It's not working.
Okay, no problem. Maybe we can have a look into this at a later stage, or maybe at the beginning of session 2, we'll go back to the with the organizing committee. If we can just pause your introduction, your contribution here, Abba, and maybe thank you all for your contributions, excellent questions from the audience, and it probably is time, with 15 minutes left, to touch on a few of these questions. I mean, we indicated the process that we want to follow in the first place. However, I believe there is one question which we flagged up fairly early in the process. Let me go and see that. Alvin Tay asked about the contribution of today's panelists in consulting with their governments, dealing with current and post-COVID-19 cross-border travel between ASEAN country borders, to have customers, as without customers, there is no growth in boating. And I believe in one of the earlier events of this series, one of the key messages was, without government support, there will be no growth. And this particularly stands out in this situation that we have at the moment. So I think that's a very important question to bring up. Can I just maybe ask, I think, Robin, you mentioned, or you brought one comment forward. I think first Robin, then I would believe from Thailand there has been very good comments and answers as well. So let's just have a short discussion about this, please.
Udo, I watch most of this Facebook or social media traffic via my handphone, so they're all little tidbits of information, but it's clear that there are numerous boats, yachters, people traveling. As you know, I mean, if the governments understand what a yachtsman is, they'll travel for years until they can't put up with each other, then they stop. But the fact of the matter is they're getting stuck in places. There should be some effort to inform governments that they need to look at these people's plight in life, whether they can enter, whether they can leave, or where they can go, whether they can be checked. It's similar to people walking in a city. So I would suggest that you and your organization would be wise to present some well thought out presentation to address this problem with local governments. In our case, the most proactive office would be the coordinating Minister of Maritime Affairs and Investments, and I can provide you with that location, but I'm sure you know who they are. But I think every government should hear this.
Good, thank you. We can touch briefly on what ICOMIA is doing. In fact, when TYBA joined ICOMIA, one of the suggestions was, can we look into a cruising protocol and so on. So I can just outline in a second what ICOMIA is doing at the moment. I've just put one of the attendees, that's Sarah, on our panel briefly. Sarah, you made a comment about the efforts from TYBA, and maybe it could be good if you just unmute yourself and to explain briefly how the TYBA is looking into this.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to all the panelists and ICOMIA. Yes, same problem here as everyone. We're struggling with closed borders. I had a long chat, maybe 6-8 weeks ago now, with Cynthia Rash of Port Denera Marina in Fiji. She was very instrumental in opening up the Fijian borders, which so far has been a great success. She dealt with the Ministries of Health, Trade and Tourism, and the local C19 task force. Obviously, it's going to be different in different countries. Probably the best thing, and considering time, is if I just double check with Cynthia, but I am absolutely sure she will be very happy for me to share her information with everyone, maybe via Udo and ICOMIA, so that people can access the same information.
And if I can just interrupt you, maybe that's something we can just produce or prepare for next time as well, as a short update.
Yeah, absolutely, Udo. Whatever you prefer, you just let me know.
Because there will be a Q&A, there will be a panel discussion after the session too, and it's probably going to be it's definitely one of the highest priority questions that we have to address at the moment. I mean, of course, I guess the question is always, is it individuals who lobby their government? Is it associations who lobby their government? And again, if the industry manages to get together in their country, if the industry is able to speak with one voice, that's always the preferred option. If the industry can come across as one neutral body and show governments the economic benefits that lie behind that, that all somehow speaks in favor of associations, correct, Sarah?
Yes, Udo, that's absolutely right. And that's the methodology they took in Fiji as well. They actually don't have a marine association there, so she used the hotel association to rubber stamp things. Here, we're doing it through Thai Yachting Business Association. And she actually then got a lobby group and had all that rubber stamped as well by the Hotel Association. They revised figures, you know, employment figures, whatever, and they put it all together. It took them 4 months.
Yeah. Good.
Udo, the concept of associations like Gahawisri approaching the government, the office that I've mentioned, it's easy to do, but it would be best if we have a letter from ICOMIA, even whether we're members or not. You know, it's a question of affordability or priorities. But if we had something from your office that can be handed over to address this problem, we might get a more regional wide response.
Yeah. So, and I don't want to wave the ICOMIA flag too much, because I really like the discussion of players engaging. But in fact, when TYBA joined ICOMIA, a discussion was sparked based on the examples laid out by Australia, who just before the COVID crisis managed to enable a protocol for yachts in transit and charter to take place. The question was, can we take this as some sort of a blueprint? And what ICOMIA does is we have policy papers. Surprisingly, if our industry members take them to their governments and say, this is applicable best practice, this is what the industry has formulated, it's very successful. So Patrick, who we have not seen yet, he has been busy in the background doing slides and so on. Patrick, if you just could outline briefly what on the initiative of TYBA has happened, and maybe Peter, you can comment on that later on.
Yeah, just very quickly, we've recognized this as part of our Super Yacht Division Committee, and have been working with TYBA, as Udo mentioned. And what we're trying to achieve here is follow sort of Australia's success in lobbying their government. You know, they spent a number of years and took a number of steps, and not all of those are repeatable across the globe. But we've sort of recognized what works and what hasn't, and we're in a draft phase of a document which has been shared with all our committee members, and hopefully will become a policy document that we're all happy with, that can be used, you know, for individual lobbying work within different governments.
Thank you, Patrick. Peter, is there anything you want to add? And I think just if we speak about Australia, it's worth mentioning David Good. I think he has been a great contributor and great commenter in how this can be internationalized. Peter, any comments from your side?
Yeah, no, what I said before, I think the most important part is that we work as a unity. And that's where the task of ICOMIA is there. Give us the guideline. If we all go to a government with the same set or the same proposal, there is more chance that it might be a bit similar between the country and facilitate transit. So that's where the task of ICOMIA is to find a common ground that you can distribute to all the countries here.
Good. Thank you. We will look into this. As I said, this is work in progress. Once it's published, we need to see what channels to be used. APSA has, Susie Raymond has submitted one comment. There can be a collaboration as well once we have a workable draft. Arthur Tay, I think I've seen one question from you early on, which might be related to this. I'm just going to bring you to the floor so you can voice your question if you just unmute yourself.
Hi, Arthur here.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Yes, we can hear you. If you just can voice your question, please.
Yeah, I was asking that in Asia, that as you said, as I said, that there's a lot of huge potential for the growth for the marine and the yachting and the boating industry. It's just that I think we need more international and Western bodies to come here to be more visible and to more engaging, so that we can learn and share that experience, how your model works in Europe or Australia or the other part of, in America or wherever. Because I think a lot of the government and bureaucrat regulatory board here do not like to see how it works over there. What are the economic impact and benefits if the government open the coastline and allow all this our industry to grow? They don't really understand how it benefits them in terms of their revenue, the marine tourism, yachting tourism. I can't do it alone in Singapore or in this region. They just felt that we don't have that history, including including the yachting event, like the Volvo Ocean Race, all these regattas, and all these things that we ask for your help. Perhaps you can have more dialogue here.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one thing we definitely can look into. Now we know the formula, how it can work without extensive air travel, and how we can actually manage to get 150, 160 people on a discussion. So I think we're working out on the recipe of success. If we go back with YP and Lawrence and see if we can bring people from other associations, how they've done their lobbying, how they have brought their industry together. I think that is a way to do it. We're almost at the end of our discussion, and it was really good to see the level of engagement, the level of questions, and of course the time that our presenters have put into this. I was hoping that we would manage to touch on some of the, let's say, positives of the pandemic. Of course, it is terrible what happened. Many businesses are suffering, but on the other hand, once the cards are reshuffled, as we say in German, the game is changed. It is about adapting. And I was very worried about our industry, how we would do as we entered the crisis. And it was a great surprise to see that we managed to some extent, that there are some positives in this situation that help and could help the industry to grow and to sustain growth. Unfortunately, this is nothing we can touch on today because I believe that will take us another 20 minutes of question and answer, but probably that should be the theme of next week's session 2. It would almost bring us to the end of session 1, unless there is anything that YP and Lawrence want to say as closing, where we just bring up the 2 main sponsors. Lawrence and YP, any comments from your side?
Yeah. Not really, but I'd like to thank our sponsors, our gold sponsors. If Patrick, you don't mind going back to the gold sponsor page. I'd like to thank Basco Boating for making this work, and Asian Yachting Academy and Fontaine Peugeot. And for the silver sponsors, I'd like to thank Group Beneteau from Asia Pacific, Mercury, 115 Marina, Simpson Marine, and Volvo Penta. And for the next slide, I'd also like to thank all of the supporting marine industries and organizations for providing all of the valuable information that you've provided today, and for all the detailed updates for each of your countries. And then for the next slide. And all of our supporting partners, Singapore Yacht Show, Hong Kong Yacht Show, Korean International Boat Show, Taiwan International Boat Show, IBI, Sail World, Asia Yacht Press, and Next Tide Consultancy for helping us promote this event and making this work. And I'd like to pass it on to YP to continue.
Thanks, thanks, Lawrence. I'm unmuted, right? I think everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, well, I trust everyone found the presentations and discussions useful and meaningful. We could have gone on a lot longer, but our time, up to our time limit. For some of you, I think more in-depth information may be needed in specific markets you're trying to access. If that's the case, give us a call. We are working with IBI Magazine to be able to customize in-depth market research and analysis beyond what is presented for those who need an additional level of information. Don't forget that session 2 takes place a week from today on Tuesday, 29th of September at 4 p.m., same time as today. So we hope to see you all again. And if you enjoyed today's session, please help us spread the word and get more people coming into session 2.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.